あるかもしれない。
I don't have an intro for this video. However, you read the title. Cars, the ultimate life form versus Sukuna, the king of curses from JJK. I personally thought that this would be a very interesting video. Sukuna is the ultimate life form within JJK. Everybody, and I mean everybody, talks about this man like they've met God and they are going to be smited by him. That is not me exaggerating at all. And I have Ronan here to explain that shit for you.
Yo, what is up? What is up? What is up? What's up, metas? What's up, everybody watching? JJK fans, JoJo fans, hope y'all are doing good. And yeah, like Meta said, today we're gonna jump into Sukuna versus Cars. And like Meta said, like you said, you're not really exaggerating. We have a lot of statements or like implications from the series that just outright mention or make clear that Sukuna is looked at as like this godlike being in the series. You have Mimiko and Nanako asking if it's okay to breathe in Sukuna's presence, which is, I mean, just insane. And then you also have a character more recently in the manga, Kashimo, basically take one look at Sukuna's true form, call him beautiful and perfection incarnate, and then die. Like, Sukuna is just canonically that guy within the series, and he's looked at by just about everybody that he fights as, I mean, unambiguously the strongest character we've seen in the story thus far.
So with these perfect beings, these ultimate life forms, who would win between each other? And since this is a JoJo's channel, I'll just go first because shockingly enough, not to make fun of JJK, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is way easier to explain. not trying to throw a diss out there. But more or less, if you have been a fan of my channel, Cars is very, very shockingly easy to describe. Like, he's not that complicated, shockingly. More or less, a lot of people have this weird misinterpretation of Cars that like he's weak for some reason. I've been seeing this in my comment section a lot for some reason, but I think it comes out of ignorance because they don't know what they're talking about. More or less, I only need like one panel to explain all of Cars' scaling. It's in his introductory panel of him becoming the ultimate life form in a double page spread where it states in the top left corner, he holds the power of the living world concurrently and moreover surpasses it. What that means in the context of JoJo is he scales to everybody and then surpasses it verbatim. Like, this isn't a crazy idea. This is a pretty, at least when you get to the higher ends of the JoJo scaling sphere, this is kind of the common idea behind his powers. He's been able to blast through everybody who's even come in contact with him. He's made Joseph look like a bitch and just lost to fucking plot armor. Let's be honest. Looking at Cars with that statement in mind, he can scale to literally every character within JoJo's who has a natural ability, not supernatural in the sense like, you know, somebody evolved their stand or something. So with that being the case here, I'm gonna basically lay it out super easy. Cars just basically scales to the sun statement from part 3. I've mentioned it a massive amount of times. For the JJK fans that don't know, more or less, the stand, Silver Chariot, blocked a laser beam from a stand called the Sun, who is more or less the literal sun. Silver Chariot gets outscaled by Jotaro Kujo. Dio also scales to Jotaro Kujo in all stats. These characters are massively faster than Light Plus. They have AP depending on that calc anywhere from like city level to like large mountain level. At an extremely high ball, it's like island level depending. Using the scan from part 2, you more or less can just scale ultimate Cars to Dio or Jotaro. However, people are going to be like, wait a minute, metas, but aren't there some stand shenanigans involved? Yes, there is. However, Cars, in a sense, scales to stands and stuff as well. Why I say this is he has the ability to get Hamon. Hamon is a life-based energy system like all the others within JoJo. So it's not that hard to put 2 and 2 together to get 4. Like, Cars scales to everybody within JoJo's. It's not that crazy. Like, that whole statement of surpassing it and being able to have all these abilities concurrently within the world, when you look at Ultimate Cars' stats, city level to island level in terms of AP, in terms of speed, he should scale to Dio or Jotaro with massively faster than Light Plus. There's a lot of evidence behind that as well. You can scale it off of Joseph from part 3, who was able to outspeed Star Platinum, who is not in his prime anymore, and Cars was able to beat Prime Joseph. Like, that's another thing we could use here. Like, that's how he's looking. And in terms of durability here too as well, Cars, of course, scales to Jotaro and Dio, and they can take their own AP right at them. So it's like the same AP level, just in durability in this case, probably with a plus added to it. Technically, Basically with cars, all of his stats just have a massive plus next to all of them. He's just kind of nuts. And the cherry on top to all of this is that Cars is the ultimate life form. He is able to have every single life form's ability to a T and then some. He can straight up surpass it. I am not a biologist. I cannot describe to you all 8 million species on the planet and what they can do, but more or less, he can do everything. Every animal in the animal kingdom, he has the ability to copy their abilities to a T and then surpass them. That's basically it. There might be some stand shenanigans there, but we're not bringing up in this video. That's what Ultimate Cars is. He has all of these hacks and then some. He's kind of ridiculously overpowered. I'll talk about more when we kind of go into the whole Sukuna versus thing, but just looking at his stats overall, Ultimate Cars is kind of fucking bonkers. He's not too hard to explain. I know Ronan's about to have a heyday with Sukuna over there, so I'll just let him take the, I don't know, let's say the next 10 minutes to explain one ability.
Listen, we not talking about Gojo over here, bro. I can explain Sukuna's abilities pretty quick. Now, if it was Gojo, you would need to be ready for an entire like scientific dissertation. But luckily for Sukuna, the scaling is going to be like at least his physical abilities are probably going to be the most difficult thing. For all of his abilities, at least for the time being, you can think of / fire domain, right? Pretty simple guy. Now, as for Sukuna scaling and really Jujutsu Kaisen scaling in general, there are kind of like 3 different levels or categories that you can place them all in. Now, me personally, I find both the like really low balled and really high balled scaling to be a little bit wild and wacky for their own reasons. I tend to find myself aligned more in the middle, but I'll just give you guys all 3 interpretations or like the general levels of strength and speed that you can scale these characters to, and I'll let you guys decide, you know, how apt that is on your own. So for the like the really low balled scaling, right? You have Sukuna or just characters in general that are implied to be like the top of the verse, you know, being stated to reach all of Mach 3. You know what I mean? Just some really crazy, ridiculous scaling, right? Curse Naoya is stated to be able to reach Mach 3. We have Maki evolve and like get stronger in battle. She's able to counter him, fight off, and like basically blitz him and deal with him rather easily. We see a weakened 15-finger Sukuna be able to hold off that Maki in tandem with Yuji. And obviously with 20 fingers, Sukuna is a decent bit stronger than he was in that 15-finger form, specifically because in that state, he was quite weakened, and he's stated just like multiple times for his like cursed energy output to be quite low. So even at the bare minimum, you have Sukuna being like a couple of times faster than sound, which is not all that impressive, especially when you realize that JoJo characters are reacting to like sunlight. So it gets a little wild. In terms of AP, there are a couple of city level calcs that you can have Sukuna apply to. Jogo's maximum meteor is calc to be, I think it's like multi-city block level. You have Mecha Maru's massive fire blast being able to destroy something that I think is calced out to be large town level. Sukuna scales so massively above them that it's not even funny, and then with his domain expansion need to be even higher. Now, the next level of scaling that I would apply, and the one that I think generally is a bit more consistent, is based off of characters' domain expansions. Now, for all of us who are unaware, domain expansions are just basically you creating an environment through your cursed energy and curse technique, right? So we have a couple of characters in the story, namely Jogo and Dagon for this specific lineup scaling, who are able to create pretty large constructs. Now, Jogo was able to create an entire mountain's worth of area with his own domain expansion, but more impressively, we have a character Dagon who was able to create an entire island with theirs. Now, we know that Dagon scales well below Jogo, Jogo scales well below Sukuna, even in 15 fingers, and obviously 20 finger Sukuna is going to be significantly stronger than that. So in terms of cursed energy output and just being able to deal out damage and have high levels of cursed energy and power behind it, you can get Sukuna all the way up to like island, maybe large island level, depending on where you see Sukuna in that regard. In terms of speed, we know that characters like Hikari are able to react to lightning from Kashimo, and that's basically the best scaling you can get for them speed-wise in this middle tier of scaling. Kashimo is able to shoot out lightning, and it's basically seemed to be a sure hit because of how fast it is relative to characters in the verse. So a lightning timer Sukuna with island level, maybe large island level AP is, you know, pretty good middle scale. Now, if you want to get super crazy, you want to really highball JJK characters, you can argue that they are planetary, or not even JJK characters in general, but Sukuna specifically is planetary with light speed scaling. The light speed scaling comes from his fight with Kashimo. Kashimo is basically able to make electromagnetic waves. These electromagnetic waves are a spectrum of light, and Sukuna is able to dodge it. This would mean that Sukuna likely is at least relativistic, if not light speed, or maybe slightly faster than light. And in terms of AP scaling, this is once again where we get a little bit crazy. You might even have to put on your, you know, your ratty scale hat here. It gets a little crazy because it's based a lot on implications and statements rather than direct feats. But on the back of a volume cover statement, it is said that Sukuna at his full power would be able to destroy the world. Now, normally you wouldn't take this in its most literal sense, simply because destroying the world in itself doesn't inherently necessitate being able to blow the planet to smithereens. screens, right? A lot of times in anime and manga, you're able to destroy the world by life wiping or destroying society as people know it, right? So generally speaking, we wouldn't take this to mean he's planetary. However, we have a character, Yuki Tsukumo, who is able to create and then later on restrict a planet potentially breaking black hole. Yuki, along with basically every other character in the series, in terms of everything, scales below Sukuna, right? But she's able to, through her mass technique, create a black hole with her own life as sort of incendiary for it. Then she and another character named Tengen are able to restrict the radius of that black hole so that it doesn't destroy anywhere near the entire planet, meaning that potentially speaking, these characters can kind of output or restrict planetary levels of ability. This would back up the Sukuna statement. And then we have, based on his feat in chapter 236, that he's technically able to cut space, existence, and specifically the world itself. Now, whether or not Sukuna is being a little bit poetic in his verbiage is up to debate. I personally think he's being a little bit exaggeratory. However, if you're really trying to scale Sukuna as high as possible, you can get him to this planetary level of scaling. You know, he's stated to be able to destroy the world. Characters that scale lower than him are able to potentially blow up the planet. He's able to cut existence and the world itself with his slashes, all kinds of stuff. He's pretty cool. So I guess that's like the 3 different levels of scaling. As for his general abilities, you have Dismantle and Cleave, which for all accounts is just slashing. Dismantle specifically is effective against objects without cursed energy, and Cleave is like the second method. He can use that to adjust to a character's durability and then amplify it. So we've seen him like slash at somebody, it not go through, and then he just adjusts his output to go higher. He has a fire arrow ability, which seems to be at least on par with like the quality of his domain slashes. He has a domain expansion, which is just amplified slashing to the max. The most important thing to note about domains is that the attacks literally spawn on top of you. They are, in the most literal sense of the word, sure hit attacks. It's not so much that they travel anymore. It's literally stated in the series that the attacks don't exist until they hit your body. So if Cars is caught within a domain, you know, despite his overwhelmingly higher speed, it is likely that these attacks would hit and that he would at least take some damage from them. Now, we have other versions of Sukuna where he is in Megami's body, and with this, he gets access to the 10 Shadows Curse technique, and while all of that's all well and good, the main thing that you need to know in regards to this is the fact that he has Maharaga, which basically, to make a very long story short, allows you to adapt to any and all phenomena, right? And we'll get into that a little bit when I think we actually get into Cars and how he adapts to certain characters and things of that nature. But Sukuna's kit and Sukuna's scaling really does a lot depend on interpretation, but that's the general information we can get into. And I think Metas, me and you can kind of like now jump into sort of how these characters interact or what their abilities look like when they're actually facing off against each other.
So how I think this fight is going to play out is very interesting. At first, I thought it was going to be a wash. I came in here thinking it was. However, the hacks are going to be playing a pretty major part here. When these two fight, it's going to be very interesting. I overall think Cars has the stats just nailed on the coffin. Like, he's just way better. Let's be honest here. Like, if you're scaling to Jotaro and then surpassing that, so when they're fighting stat to stat, it's going to Cars. I think both of us can agree. I think a lot of people can just agree on that. The math is math here.
Yeah, listen, we came to the conclusion that Cars is massively faster than light, and in the most generous scale to Sukuna, you can at best get them to like vaguely faster than light. They're not moving at the same levels. They're really not.
They're just not. And even then, even if I were to lowball it, like Cars is technically still faster than him. He, in previous states when he was just a regular Pillaman, he can react to light. And now that he's gone above that, he has to be faster than light. So even Sukuna at his highest versus Ultimate Cars at his lowest isn't fair. So in terms of stats, Cars clears. Now we're going to talk about my favorite part of all these versus battles, the hacks and abilities going at each other, because this is probably what makes or breaks a lot of fights. And in this case, I think it actually plays a major factor. So the first thing is the domain expansion and Amagaraga. These abilities, when they're clashing against each other, are going to be interesting because Cars has the ability to adapt to life. For example here, Cars was able to get Hamon after seeing Joseph use it once off the cuff because he just knew how to do that because he's the ultimate life form now. That's kind of his bullshit. And once he got it, he had the ability to just beat Joseph down with it 100 times more than Joseph's. That's how strong he is. At maximum, he is at least 100 times stronger than a lot of characters out there, at least in the JoJo universe, and all the animals' abilities he has in his repertoire. So the idea now comes into this: could Sukuna adapt to Cars? Could Cars adapt to Sukuna? This is what I kind of want to get into. Could the domain expansion and a Magaraga, could it beat Cars? Like, could it adapt to him? Which, if it can adapt to Ultimate Cars, which I think it can, I'm going to be very generous here, I think it could, Sukuna could become an Ultimate Life Form, and the entire conversation here changes dramatically here.
Yeah, so like, I will say this. I think that, you know, obviously JJK fans know Sukuna can take on the burden of adaptation himself by basically putting the wheel over so that any damage he takes or any strikes that he takes from Cars, he can use to adapt continuously, pass that adaptation onto Maharaga and have him cook from there. So basically you can have like Maharaga be mainly not immortal rather, but like adapted and unkillable to many of the methods that Cars can use. So in terms of adaptation, I think that like the any and all phenomena statement is just such a like all-encompassing, like super crazy statement to have in favor of Maharaga that I would say if it just comes down strictly to adapting in the first place, I would give it to Sukuna, specifically if he has the 10 shadows in the back pocket. Now, one thing that kind of is interesting to go over, I think at least, is like one of Cars' abilities that you mentioned, right? When we were talking about this before recording, and that's like the adaptation of not necessarily just like all life forms, but like specifically life energy. Because, you know, I don't want to step on your toes here, but in the event he does that, Sukuna's cooked. He's fried. It's over. He's finished. Done for. Because yeah, when you were describing that to me, it was pretty crazy. Like, what does he adapt to? Like all forms of energy and uses them himself or something?
So within JoJo's, there is a constant debate if Ultimate Cars can have a stand. There are versions of Cars that can get a stand, and a lot of people are like, okay, that's a completely different version of him. However, within the series, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. In JoJo's, life energy is basically the thing that is everywhere all at once. It happens with vampires, it happens with stands. Stands are life energy, mental energy, the fighting spirit collected into a physical form, a ghost. It gets really abstract, and the reason why this matters is Hamon is in that category. Hamon is a pathway to getting a stand, and if cursed energy is anything like mental energy or psychic energy that Ronin can probably fill in, if it's anything similar to that, there actually is a genuine case of Ultimate Cars adapting / gaining all of Sukuna's abilities in one go, or maybe his own. Now, I'll be honest, it could be just his own versions of his own abilities, and then beating Sukuna with his own shit. That's entirely possible here.
Yeah, so based on the description of life energy in JoJo's, cursed energy is like pretty similar. You'll notice a pretty consistent through line in anime and manga generally. They make their power systems based on like mental or spiritual energy anyways, and Sukuna and like cursed energy and stuff like that, it is based on like controlling your emotions, specifically negative ones, and like formulating that into cursed energy. It's something that a majority of the verse has. Like, we can only note 2 cases in the entire story that are completely devoid of cursed energy, and those are like seen as anomaly superhuman like beings or whatever. If you look at Cars and you say, yeah, he probably adapts cursed energy, and there's a statement like where he's like, I just output your abilities like 100 times better than you. If he's able to then like take that to that extent with Sukuna, he's cooked. Like, it's just over for him, right? I honestly think that is probably the simplest or like the most one-sided victory that you can kind of, or a conclusion that you can come to here, because that form of adaptation, that level of growth that quickly would be broken. Like, Maharaga can adapt to anything, but it does take a little bit more time than just, hey, you hit me once, now I do everything you do but better.
Cars with a Maharaga on top of the ultimate life form in one go would be nuts.
Yeah, that'd be disgusting, bro. That'd be disgusting. I will say, assuming that isn't the case for some reason, right? He just, cursed energy is too different, or he's not able to adapt to it properly, or whatever you may think. I will say that in terms of like attack potency, the mid to high balled versions of Sukuna could damage Cars, especially if you go with the high ball, pretty significantly with the domain expansion.
Agree.
As I mentioned, the domain is basically ignorant of speed. It doesn't really matter. It just hits you no matter like where you are, how fast you are. That's a large reason why domain expansions are even useful in JJK, because they can overcome like massive speed differences and things of that nature. So if Cars is getting hit by like world destroying slashes, the question just becomes, can Sukuna do enough damage or deal out enough like significant harm to Cars before he regenerates? And I will say this only works with a high ball, just to make it clear, just so people don't think I'm saying, yeah, Sukuna definitively bodies Cars, right? right? This only works with the highball. But if you think he does the same thing on cars that he does with Maharaga, which is essentially break him down with slashes, force him to heal from it, and then nuke him with a fire arrow, like incinerate him, then I think that is a potential win con for Sukuna. However, I want to make sure that people know there are so many caveats or like graces that you have to get Sukuna in order to come to that conclusion, that it is pretty unlikely. I think the ratio we came up to was like, it's like 80% in Cars' favor, maybe 20% in Sukuna's, if you're pretty generous to him.
The reason why it's like this is because Cars just genuinely has too much for Sukuna to handle. The Pillarman, the vampire powers, the hormone powers, on top of every creature on planet Earth and their abilities, and the hacks regeneration, just the overpowered stats, it's just way too much for Sukuna. Cars' win con scenarios are just adapting to him, gaining a better domain expansion and abilities similar to him just to overpower him, or just beating him down with his own fists like a vampire or hormone user is very likely. And there is the case where Cars in a desperate scenario could eat Sukuna and then withstand him, kind of killing him. Why I say kinda is Sukuna's whole thing is to be in a person's body and then just take it over with time. However, Cars isn't Yuji or Megami. He is the ultimate life form. He skills way above those two. So like, if that were to happen in a desperate case scenario, Cars would be fine. On top of the fact that Sukuna basically needs to one-shot kill him to truly end this fight, as if a single cell is left, mitosis could occur, and Cars would just be back ready to fight again. But to be fair on Sukuna's case, technically you can't kill Sukuna either, as you would have to destroy the curse itself to beat him permanently. So like, there's the whole like, he's gonna die physically, but he technically won't ever die.
Yeah, I will say I agree, especially when it comes down to just like beating the body. Like, we know Sukuna's like vessel can be killed, right? And that can affect him negatively. Like it definitely, he can be brought like very close to death, or like something so similar to it that it might as well be that. We know that when he like quote unquote dies in Yuji's vessel or whatever, like he rips out his heart, Yuji comes back, he dies, right? Some unknown amount of time later, Sukuna's like, so I kind of want to be alive again, so let's make a deal real quick. And then he just revives him, right? With no questions asked. And keep in mind, this is after like he's considered dead, and a character like a doctor within the story is like, yeah, no, like, I can't bring him back. Right, he's dead, he's gone, it's over. And Sukuna is able to revive. His fingers are known as like indestructible cursed objects, etc, etc, etc. There's definitely the interesting question of like, oh, well, you know, is Sukuna's incarnation strength enough to overcome Cars? But that's such like, we know that Sukuna can be suppressed, right? We know that like people with strong enough vessels can hold them back or be cages for him. So in an instance where Cars is like the ultimate life form with all of these like crazy abilities, it's very possible and likely that Sukuna will just live on as a part of Cars rather than like take over his body in that way. The only, I think another potential win con, like a way to like effectively kill or disable Cars rather, and this might be the last thing I say in argument or even in favor of Sukuna, it's just his ability to slash the soul or like attack the soul. I don't know if Cars has soul resistances.
I'll just cut in here. No, JoJo's, I'm just gonna state this now. I've never stated in a video. I'm gonna just immediately right now. There is no resistances to soul hacks at all. If they have soul manipulating abilities, they're fucked.
Yeah.
Just insert there.
Then yeah, like and for anybody that might be wondering, we know that Sukuna can slash souls because he's able to hurt Mahito. Mahito can only truly be damaged by those who can hurt his soul, which is why he's like Yuji and later Nobara are kind of like enemies of his. And Sukuna is an even greater form of that. He's able to just casually throw out slashes that slash like that just demolish his soul. Mahito says that while his cursed energy in that form is like, it's cool, it's strong or whatever, his soul is, in his own words, on another level, right? So in terms of like dealing out damage and blah blah to the soul, you can make an argument that Sukuna's like, if he imbues it with that soul based attack, if he notices his physical abilities aren't working, that might be a pretty good way to deal with Cars. But like we said, it's one of those things where it is a possibility. It is not probable though. It's not likely to happen in that way because of the speed difference, because of the hacks difference, etc, etc.
Cars is just a better version of Sukuna at the end of the day. Once you start looking at it at hacks and abilities and just what they've done overall, he's just better. And that isn't me exaggerating either, as one of the win con scenarios is just cars just surpassing Sukuna in one go. But to be fair to Sukuna, he does have win con scenarios. He can one-shot him if you highball him, but if he doesn't do it in one go, it's going to get more and more difficult throughout the fight. Second would be if cars were to eat him and somehow take over his body. I just don't find that very likely, as Ronan has basically described that cars would be the perfect cage for Sukuna. And of course, there is the whole soul damaging ability, which is likely. However, you have to go through the entire first half of this fight before we actually even get up to that point, which is very unlikely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I couldn't have put it better myself. It's just like, it's one of those things where, yeah, if you plug your controller into Sukuna, right, and you're like, all right, do all of the moves I need you to do in order to win, yeah, you could probably pull that out. But like going through the natural flow of battle, Sukuna has to figure out what he's even dealing with. More likely than not, he's going to just lose before then. So,
well, that is going to be the end of the video. Thank you, Ronan, for showing up for this fight, even though it may be a little bit one-sided, but it was still fun to discuss how these abilities would interact with each other in general.
Appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate you having me. Thank you. This was really fun. You know, nice to be on here.
Also, congrats for 100K. Love you, brother.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Likewise, man. Likewise.
If you like JJK, subscribe to Ronan right now. You better.
Yeah,
I'm pointing at you.
There was I had to clear the 100K mark before I was worthy enough to come on the channel. So, you know, I'm glad I passed that benchmark. Appreciate you.
Been friends for 4 years. Hey, you want to make a video now?
yeah, maybe.
Crazy, bro. But yeah, maybe, man. Let's do this. All right. Well, like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Stay hydrated. See you next one, ladies and gentlemen.